All right, really excited to be joined by two-time NBA champion and Finals MVP Cedric Maxwell. You can also find him on the Cedric Maxwell podcast on CLNS. And I'm excited to talk with you because I'm going through my awards picks,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
can watch all the games. I could dive into the stats. I could dive into the film. I could talk to players, coaches, scouts. I could do all of that. I'll never have the perspective of somebody like you do who has played the game, won in this game at the highest level.
Hmm.
So I wanted to get your perspective on a bunch of awards. We could start with MVP. And I don't know about you, but it does seem like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is on his way to winning his second straight MVP award. Not much debate over the top three, right? SGA, Jokic, Wemby. We could maybe flip Jokic and Wemby if we want, in whatever order. To me, the real intrigue on the MVP ballot starts at the end. 4, 5. Who's gonna make it? Because I do think that stuff matters for historical importance,
But
right?
why? Let me ask you then. Why does that matter? If you're 4 or 5, if you if you're number 4 or 5, what does it what does it matter? I think it's important that you have a great season, but when it comes down at the end of the day, if you're saying you're number 5, you're number 6, you're number 7, are you going to go down to number 10? Oh, how far are you going to go? I mean, I
It
think that Jaylen Brown was tremendous. He's probably Eastern Conference MVP, but I think you stop at maybe 2, maybe
mm,
3. But when you start going down to 4, 5, and 6,
it's a great point. I do think that there's a difference between obviously winning MVP, coming into second, like a second place finish in MVP is something we keep track of and talk about, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, top three, I see your point, right? It is sort of this weird, like, why do we care about the top five? It's just like this round number that we care about. We do vote on it. Like your ballot is, we have to put 5 names on a ballot, and I guess that's really why it matters. And I just want to make sure that I'm going with the right 5.
My broadcast partner talks about that a lot, and who's going to be second and the MVP in the Eastern Conference. Sometimes my broadcast partner, Sean Grandy, talks about he likes to change the rules and talk about who's the best, who has scored more points in a certain year. Jaylen Brown, I think, has scored more points than anybody this year, so he's leading the league in scoring. That's not how they do it in the NBA. You lead the league in scoring by an average,
Right.
and that's how it stops. If you want to start bringing more categories in, then I think you open up Pandora's box. The same way I'm talking about you talking about number 5 and number 6 and number 7. At the end of the year, later on in life when you get older, hey, I was number 5 in the balloting. Okay. No, it's like being the MVP, finals MVP. Oh, I was almost there. Larry Bird was there before I was. No, it's just you have one, Shea Gilgeous Alexander. To me, the MVP probably should be, I always say the best team. And the best team right now probably is OKC. But man, it's hard to pick against Jokic, and it's really hard to pick against Wemby because Wemby has done some things to me when I think about a league. So think about the extraordinary stuff that you have to do from a perspective of the game is going to almost have to change. Wilt Chamberlain changed the game. Another one, Steph Curry changed the game. Now, Wemby is changing the game. I remember, I think it was Anthony Davis said he needs to be like 7'5" and over league. That's the league because what he does right now is so unfair because he can win. Are we going to talk about him being the defensive player, the best player in the league, dominating? It's like a lot of times people forget about a Kareem Olajuwon, and because I think the dream was so good that he's my favorite player of all times because he dominated the game on both ends of the floor more than anybody in the history of the game. Now, are we turning around? Is Wemby going to be that same person, or he's going to dominate more of the game on both ends of the floor than anybody else?
I'm glad you brought up Akeem there because people say all the time we've never seen anything like Victor Wembanyama. And it's true, we've never seen somebody quite this size and with his outside
Mm-hmm.
shooting and all that stuff. But it really did kind of start Like we've seen versions of this each generation,
Mhm.
right? And you could even argue Shaq in his own way was just like, oh my, we've never
No,
seen anybody with a footwork like
no,
Shaq.
no, no. I don't put Shaq in there because Shaq didn't dominate defensively. What I'm talking
Mm,
about is a
the
guy
two way.
who two-way, who dominated the game. Akeem Olajuwon dominated the game, and I talked to Sam Cassell, other people. I played with Akeem my last year in the league, and watch just how dominant he was on the defensive end, but then also watch how dominant he was on the offensive end. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as great as he was, we never talked about him defensively. He wasn't a bad defender. He blocked some shots, but Akeem made steals.
Right.
He changed the game, and that's the thing. Same thing when I think about Wemby. Wemby is going to change the game in a way that we're going to look back later on if he stays healthy for these. How many times is he going to be Defensive Player of the Year? How
Yeah.
many could he lead the league in scoring? That possible? Is he the alien right now, the 7'5" guy that can get a shot off anytime he wants to because he's 7'5"? It's just some strange stuff.
Would you go? So, what would your order be for like top three? You mentioned the three names: SGA, Jokic, Wemby. Like, how would you go on this? Because you meant like SGA, best player on the best team. To me, he has the most foolproof case. Like, there's not like a thing that you could say that he doesn't do.
Well, he
Even
doesn't.
if Wemby's better defensively and Jokic is
Well,
better
there
offensively.
is. You just made that's a contradiction because you just said there's something he does. He doesn't defend. He doesn't defend like Wemby. Nobody defends like Wemby, and nobody scores like the combination of the two. SGA, would I want him to take the last shot right now in the NBA? Very possibly. But Wemby, would I want him to take the last shot? Now, I know I want him to get the defensive opportunity to go down. Jokic getting the last shot, but I don't see either one of those guys defensively when I start talking about what you're able to do on the defensive end.
So you would go Wemby on.
I think I would go Wemby. I think I would go Wemby as much as it kind of just sticks at me. Sean Elliott, who was a great player for San Antonio at the time,
Mhm.
now a broadcaster. I was talking to him before the draft when Wemby was coming in, and he said, "Let me say this." He said, "Wemby's going to be a great player." Now, he no doubt about it. But if he comes to San Antonio, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be an all-around player. Now, if he went any place, I would have thought that he'd been an all-around player. But he said he made the point. Look what we've done with bigs over the years. Look what we did with David Robinson. Look what we did with Tim Duncan. Now it's hard to argue against those that size, but Wembanyama, I don't know if you could place him any place in the league right now that he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's a great point. And San Antonio is so interesting. I mean, Wemby's great. Nobody doubts that.
Mm-hmm.
The Spurs are great. Like this is a team that could win the finals too, right? This is a
Mm-hmm.
legitimate,
Yeah.
and that's the most exciting thing is we get to see Victor Wembanyama at this stage so early in his career still be a 2 seed in the Western Conference. Like the Thunder are the favorites, right? But nobody's saying the Spurs can't win it, right? It wouldn't
Are,
surprise
are,
anybody.
are the Thunders the favorite?
Well, I mean, like the betting favorite, like
I mean,
Vegas has them as the
considering
favorite.
when you think about San Antonio has done a number on these guys this year.
They have their number.
So you're
They do.
talking about being the favorite. How are you the favorite if you think about San Antonio the way they played against you? There's
Yeah.
another factor which comes into play, and you better tell the people who are betting the money. Victor Wembanyama, every time he sees Chet Holmgren, he gets pissed off. He goes to another
They
level.
don't like each other.
Well, yeah, and that to me is the scariest thing. You don't see Victor. You don't see him that mad all the time. He takes it personal. Whenever he sees Chet Holmgren, is like, how dare you even have him on the floor with me? So there's another button that you push in there when you think about the betters and who they are. If San Antonio is going up against OKC, do you cancel out what Chet's done? Because I've seen Victor just dominate him and take him out of a game. So it would be an interesting scenario.
Everything that you're saying is exactly how San Antonio feels about this matchup, which is maybe the scariest part of all of this is that they do, as young as they are, they do not fear. And that, by the way, it starts with Wembanyama. It's Stephon Castle. It's Dylan Harper. It's De'Aaron Fox, who has some playoff experience. Like
Yeah.
that team is competitive.
you got all these people you throw in the mix that it makes them so scary when I think about who they are and what they're able to do on both ends of the floor, and the fact that they're young.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is the factor that they're young and they haven't been there? Would that be a drawback? Well, possibility. But man, the way they defend, the way they have shooters, De'Aaron Fox can take over a game by himself.
Mm-hmm.
But what you see them do most of the time is they defer. They defer the victor. It's like, dude, this isn't our team. De'Aaron Fox comes down. God bless, Sacramento for letting De'Aaron Fox go. It's like this is what I love about the new NBA. They allow you to go where you want to go. During the 80s, you want to go someplace. Only place you could go was home. Yep. You couldn't go no place talking about, I want to go to this team or that team.
Yeah.
He picked a place, a location, the destination that he wanted to go, and they made it possible for him to go to that destination and land.
In terms of the rest of my my picks here, I'm having a hard time with 4 or 5 on the MVP ballot between Donovan Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard. Those are, to me, the names that are really in the mix. Like, 2 of those names have to be on this ballot.
No, and no. You want to say that? Say no, no, and no. Jaylen Brown would be the person over those 2 guys. Let's look at what the Celtics were supposed to be this year. They keep using that word gap. The gap year for the Celtics. What are they now with Tatum coming back? And how far has Jaylen Brown carried this team until Brown has come back? Kawhi Leonard is no doubt. He's one of the greatest players around. I think you look at Donovan Mitchell, I love what he does, but Cleveland has a tendency sometimes to disappear. They'll flake out on you. But Jaylen Brown has carried this team this year. Didn't he drop 50 points on one of those guys you just mentioned, Kawhi Leonard, down in L.A., in his own building? Jaylen Brown, but those 2 guys, if you want to, start talking about those numbers below, Jaylen Brown will be that next guy because of what he's done and where the Celtics are now. Did you pick the Celtics this year? Where did you pick the Celtics to be this year?
I had them missing the playoffs.
Okay. And what where are they at right now?
They're remarkably, they are the 2 seed. And so the point that you're making is the thing that I am having a hard time defining, right? And it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this, because if you look at the Donovan Mitchell, to me, I put Kawhi, I just put him over here. I don't have him. I'm not considering the top 5 because the whole scandal thing before the season, I'm not really sure how that impacted the Clippers' slow start, and it's too much. I don't know enough about the insides of that whole situation, so I'm like, all right, you're over here. Great season, Kawhi. You'll make an All-NBA team. You'll make one of those All-NBA teams. You'll get acknowledged in that way. But for MVP, I'm just going to put you off to the side. So to me, it's Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown. It's easy enough. And by the way, for the listeners, I'm going to assume that Luka is not going to be eligible. I don't know what's going to happen there, but again, too many questions. So I put him over there too. Deciding between Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown, the numbers, you could make an argument Donovan Mitchell has better numbers, right? Like it's less than a point per game that's separating the 2. Jaylen Brown slightly over Mitchell, but Mitchell has a better field goal percentage, a better assist to turnover ratio. And then the other part is, and all of his plus minus and advanced stats are better. They just say he's better than Jaylen Brown. So you could look at all that and be like, he's better. You could also argue that he played a similar role for Cleveland this year, because the point that you make about Jaylen Brown, no Jason Tatum to start the year, low expectations, all these things. Cleveland was out without Darius Garland for most of the start of the season, and then they add James Harden late in a similar way that Boston adds Tatum late, and Donovan Mitchell kind of kept the Cavs afloat to the point where it's only 4 games that separate Boston and Cleveland in the standings, so I'm not going to do the win-loss thing in terms of trying to split the difference here. They're close enough where, they both have home court in the first round, and that's an accomplishment. But the thing that you said about the Cavs just sort of go quiet or disappear sometimes, I cannot shake that. The data could lead me to Donovan Mitchell, and yet I still agree with you where I'm just like, why do I feel the Celtics so much more? Why do I feel Jaylen Brown so much more. And a lot of the stat people will be like, oh, the on-off numbers don't do Jaylen Brown any favors. I'm like, I watch these Celtics games, man, and that guy feels like a battering ram of a force. And it has nothing to do against Donovan Mitchell, but I feel Jaylen Brown and his team more than I feel the Cavaliers, and I don't know how to weigh that into my consideration.
Well, here's how you weigh it, I think, and no offense at all to Cleveland's coaching staff, but let's look at the coaching staff for the Celtics this year. I know we're going to eventually probably talk about it, but is Joe Mazzulla the coach of the year?
Yeah.
Is he the best coach? Is he the best coach right now this year? What he's done with this team? Look at the players. My broadcast partner likes to use this ancillary. That's his word he likes to use. Let's look at the ancillary players around for the Celtics this year. Hugo Gonzalez, Garza, who was a throwaway, has played great this year.
Big three-pointer the other night.
Pritchard has played well. Has stepped up from being a not being a starter. Derek White. All these guys that you put together, but I'm just talking about the other players that have stepped.
Jordan Walsh all of a sudden helping.
How about Shiver?
Yeah.
How about Shiver hitting 6 threes against the Knicks?
Yep.
So the all those other pieces, and this is what I talked to Coach Mazzulla earlier in the year, and we were talking about players. And what he used was one phrase which sticks with me. He said, if you play for me, you have to play like you have a sense of urgency, like your house is on fire, and you're playing like this is your last game. If you look at what he does with the players that go in these lineups and play, they play with that sense of urgency. How did the Celtics beat Orlando the other day? Orlando Magic, the Celtics put down their first 8 players. Their first 8. Orlando has almost all their players right now playing, except the other Wagner brother. And the Celtics going in and clean their clock in Boston in a game that Orlando needed and the Celtics didn't need.
Right.
So how do you put those two together when you think? And that's why we talk about Jaylen Brown, but when you talk about Jaylen Brown, you got to go along and put Joe Mazzulla, because those two people are very similar. And I love Donovan Mitchell. I love the Spider. But what I talk about, when you talk about those two players again, you just want to get to these two players, Brown and Mitchell. Who's the better defender?
I would say Jaylen Brown by a hair. I think Donovan Mitchell is a better defender than he gets credit for. But Jaylen Brown is a better defender.
I think Donovan Mitchell makes more steals because he's willing to gamble a lot more. But I think Brown, as a ball defender, is a better defender than the Spider. So when you talk about those two players, and you want to say which one is, you've got me go down. You got me to go into that rabbit hole that I hate when I go down 3, 4, 5.
That's right.
Going down there. Okay, I'm with you. I'm explaining why, and that's why I take Jaylen Brown, because of what his team did this year. You still thought that the Cavaliers were going to be a team that was going to be in the playoffs. You thought that from the beginning of the year, right?
Correct.
You looked at the Celtics and said, no way, Jose.
No way.
Get ready for the summer. I'm over there broadcasting for this team. The Celtics are 0-3, first 3 games. I'm thinking like, whoo, it's going to be a long year in April. When April the 12th, April 5th, whatever it is, comes in, oh, we're going home then.
Yep.
Since then, the Celtics have just been juggernauts. They beat all these teams. They could have beat OKC twice this year. They beat them once here in Boston. And again, this was without Tatum. So I'm not saying the Celtics are this creature, but what I start to see is that right now they're getting healthy. At the same time, Jaylen Brown is playing great, MVP-like. Tatum is coming back, playing well. They're trying to integrate Vooch into the lineup and all those other players. And then the Joe Mazzulla factor that the Celtics play harder than anybody in the league right now. And that's hard to say when I think about OKC. That's why I thought they do on every possession. That's what I thought about San Antonio. But I'll give the edge right now to the Celtics in just being balls to the wall on every play.
It's why I think that there's no question, despite the fact that Detroit is the number 1 seed, and no disrespect to the Detroit Pistons, great season, awesome players, Cade Cunningham's back. That's a dangerous team. But to me, there's no question that the Celtics are the favorites in the Eastern Conference. Can I ask you about Defensive Player of the Year? Because Wembanyama, there was a minute there where we weren't sure he was going to qualify. And everybody that had Wemby written in Sharpie on their Defensive Player of the Year ballot was just like, oh, do I have to figure out somebody else here? Because we stopped thinking about Defensive Player of the Year a month ago. He plays despite the bruised rib, so now he's eligible. So now we don't have to worry about it. But it did at least get me thinking about, like, who would I have voted for if not Wemby? If Wemby was ineligible, who would I have given this vote for? You look at some of the players that have been talked about in terms of this award. I won't even go down. Like, to you, beyond Wemby, who's the best defender in the league, or a defender who's had a great season in your mind, a defender that it's at least popped when you're watching these games?
That's very good. The best defender.
Because I could give you a couple of guys that I was considering if you want to start there. I was thinking Bam, and I was thinking Chet Holmgren. So, Chet Holmgren, anchor of one of the best defenses in the league, but a lot of help around him.
Do we go down? Could we, what's it, the Great Barrier Reef down in
Dyson Daniels in Atlanta.
Dyson Daniels is a hell of a defender. Individual ball defender. Bam. I like Chet more than him. When it comes to locking people up. But because Wemby has gotten to 65 games, which I think is stupid, because he's got 5 games now, all of a sudden we can vote for him.
Right.
If he only played 60 games, he would still.
What's the difference between 64 games and 65 games? I don't understand.
Look, I'm over here as a broadcaster looking, going, really? And we keep talking about this, and oh my God, I got to make this. And if you risked Wembanyama comes back and plays 18 minutes so he could qualify.
He played 20 minutes with a bruised rib, and if something bad would have happened and he would have been out for the playoffs.
Thank you.
You are preaching to the choir right now. We are on the same page on this.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. And we start talking. We're at the end of the year.
Awards that are going to go on his cabinet, on his shelf.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, or are you looking to win a championship?
And for people that are doing what we're doing now in terms of broadcasting, now we have to talk about, like, oh, well, he played this many games and they have these many games left and he didn't make 20 minutes in this game, so this one's ineligible. Now I'm doing math in the final week of the season where I should be talking about the playoffs. I should be talking about Wemby in the playoffs. Now I'm talking about, like, are they going to meet this, like, arbitrary game limit thing? And I don't understand. It's bad for the conversation around the league too.
I don't even know who brought this up. I mean, was it the Player Association? Who brought this into vogue to say, look, I mean, I think a bigger question would be right now is more about teams who are essentially chucking some of these games away, who are throwing them in, like, and my good buddy, I love Danny. Danny's my good buddy, but and Danny Ainge is my good buddy in Utah. But man, I mean, why don't they just bring me and let me play 35 games just to see what they can get? I mean, they're trying to toss these games back and forth. Let's look at what Washington has done. And even now, as a paying fan, one of the bigger problems I have right now, if you're a paying fan, I looked at the game the other day, and Joe Mazzulla's going to do what he's going to do. But if I saved all my money for that last game to see Tatum and Brown, and I see him walk in and I see him walk out, does that satisfy me? I understand about being hurt, but see, because I played during the 80s when essentially you're going. I laugh. I talked to a couple of people who are like Rick Mahorn out of the 80s, and we laugh a lot when we look at some of the guys now, and we look at some of the injuries they have. Sore knee. Everybody's knee is sore. Twisted high ankle sprain. When you go, the coolest thing about the NBA during the 80s was ice. It was like treatment. You get an ice bath, man, you'll be okay. You won't even feel it. You won't even feel that broken bone in your leg, in your foot. So I think it's just kind of crazy when I think about, these circumstances in the 65 games.
And it's why the other problem I have with the 65 game rule, and I don't need to do I've talked about this enough on the show, but it makes it so that maybe in the voters' minds, 65 games and 82 games is the same, right? Because either you qualify or you don't. And I'm like, no, I really want to give credit to guys like Jaylen Brown, who've played 70 plus games in a year, or Tyrese Maxey in Philadelphia, playing 70 games this season at 38 minutes per game. I mean, that deserves recognition.
You're away from the 80s when guys were playing 82 games.
Right.
Games. You're away from that. That's what is really the crazy part. That doesn't even matter to you right now. You're going 82 games. What are you, a cyborg or something? What are you playing 82 games? Back then it was a badge of honor to play. I only did it one time. I had the chance to do 82 games one year, and I got to the last game of the season, and Bill Fish sat me out against Philadelphia. He made me dress, but I didn't play. That's the only one.
Right.
So I pretty much, over my career, I think I was like 79 games every year to 80 games, someplace in that area. So, but I look at you saying right now, 70 games. Oh my God.
Right.
It's just incredible. It's
like, unfortunately,
so
that's where we're at.
Why don't you just lose? No, it won't happen. But why don't you take 10 games out of the schedule here? And you might be feeling better about yourself. I know it's not going to happen because of contracts and money, but that is what I laugh about when I see a guy like you said, he plays 70 games. Oh my God, it's incredible.
Well, it's another reason why, if I want to maybe shift gears to another award here, Sixth Man of the Year, and you look at somebody like Keldon Johnson in San Antonio, he's played 82 games.
Okay.
And I think for Sixth Man in particular, I don't want to just do this guy scored the most points off the bench award.
How he's going to impact the game.
How he's going to impact the game, and we can rely on this guy every single night. That he's going to come off the bench and he's going to do what he does every night, and we know what we can expect from that. That is, I mean, I'll ask you, how big of a deal is that for a team to know if we go to Keldon Johnson on the bench, or some of these, Jaime Jaquez Jr. from Miami, and just we know these guys are going to be there, they're going to do what they do, and we can rely on this guy every single night to do these things, whether it's scoring, passing, defense, whatever it is. What this guy does at a high level, we can expect it every single night. How big of a deal is that for a team?
The word you used was reliability.
Yeah.
Because when you can rely on somebody, that's like a coach. What you do every night, the way you attack teams, you're going, okay, we're going to get 20 points from this guy every night. Or we're going to get 15, or we're going to whatever. When you can rely on that, use that as a formula to you winning.
Right.
That's the key to winning basketball games and having a winning culture, because you can go to that bench guy. Or even if he comes in and you need him to start, he comes in from being a sixth man to all of a sudden being that other guy. Did we look at Peyton Pritchard, being a sixth man of the year, the way he was scoring the basketball? Did we think that was, and he's a scorer, not a rebounder, not an assist guy, but a scorer. Did we think that was possible? So, yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, but I would probably go with Johnson. I think that in San Antonio, because of their record and him playing 82 games, that to me would push him over the edge.
Yeah, I had it down between him and Jaime Jaquez Jr. He seems very instrumental to everything that Miami's doing in terms of that up-tempo offense that they're running, and his playmaking has been really important. But to me, it's a two-man race between those guys. A little love for Tim Hardaway Jr., who has made the most threes off the bench for Denver. Has just first year in Denver, it kind of feels like he's been there for 5 years already. He just fit right in with his chemistry, but he's sort of a distant. Again, one of those things where, well, you give me 3 names, I have to put 3 names on my ballot. I got to figure out a third one. But to me,
you know what? They have you with numbers, don't they? They get you with numbers. Your sheet has to be filled, and you go, I gotta have one. I gotta
have somebody. I can't leave it blank.
They get you. That's when they will get to me. I would not be good. I'm like, I got one. Well, how about 3 and 4?
It would be great to just leave it blank and just.
I got 1 vote for this guy. That's how it's gonna be.
Right. They send it back to you like, Cedric, we need more, and you're like, no.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm all set.
Last one I want to ask you about is Rookie of the Year. You see all these guys play in their first year. Cooper Flagg, Con Knippel, VJ Edgecombe.
Stop. Stop right there. Stop. Cooper Flag, when you said that, and there's no offense, I'm happen to be in Charlotte, North Carolina today. People keep talking about Knipple scoring the basketball. Absolutely. Broke some records. Unreal. Shooting the basketball. But when I look at your overall body of work, I got to go and give Flag. And because he scored, he assisted, he blocked shots, they used him all over the floor. And although he had a team that was a losing team, the personnel around him weren't as good as the personnel are here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I stop right there with Cooper Flag as my rookie of the year.
So the point you made about the fact that they played him all over the floor is something that I keep coming back to, almost to his detriment sometimes, right? At the start of the year, they're like, hey, you're point guard. And Cooper Flag's like, what do you mean I'm the point guard? What are you talking about? Like, we don't have another one. Kyrie's hurt. Like, you just do it. And it wasn't good, but it wasn't his fault either, right? And I think those things are in a different kind of subject. Like, those are important for Cooper Flag to get those reps early in his career because he's going to have the ball in his hands at some point.
They're going to help him at the end of the day, yes.
Yeah. But he didn't, I thought the way that he approached that was great. He didn't, even though every Mavericks fan was complaining about it, he didn't. And they got through it. And the Mavericks even had a little stretch there in the middle of the year where we're like, could they make the play-in tournament after a slow start? And they kind of fizzled out afterwards, and they trade Anthony Davis, and they kind of just go in another direction at the trade deadline, kind of on purpose. But to me, I see a lot of people be like, oh, it's Khan. He's a rookie on a playoff team. I have a hard time, like with MVP, to me, your team's success matters. I have a harder time doing that for rookies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love Con Knipple. But to me, it's
the way it's the way you impact the total game.
Right.
Knipple is a scorer. We don't look at Knipple as a defender. We don't look at Knipple as a rebounder. We don't look at him as a passer, facilitator. So we see him as a scorer. He does that extremely well. But if I had to go, and you're telling me about my picks, I stop right there. They will get my ballot. I send it back with one name in it, and that will be it.
Well, those are all the categories I wanted to ask you about. I appreciate the time. Cedric Maxwell, you can find him on the Cedric Maxwell podcast, part of CLNS. I very much enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate the perspective.
Well, I thank you for having me on. I thought you hit me with the low ball early on when you start going, hey, MVP 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Stop right there. We're getting off to the wrong foot, but I think we got our footing and understand what you're doing. And again, this is about balloting. I haven't had a ballot in years now. And I remember one time I voted for, I voted for a coach. It was, instead of the Celtic coach, I voted for Rick Carlisle as coach of the year. And what people were just upset. But I said Rick Carlisle had less to work with, but achieved the same thing as the Celtics did during that time with Jimmy O'Brien. Jimmy O'Brien was great, but Rick Carlisle didn't. And I matter of fact had a talk with Jimmy O'Brien. He called me into the office and like, I just wanted to know whose side you're on. And I said, Jimmy, this is what I believe. And he said, you know what? I agree. He said, I just wanted to know your explanation. So yeah, I think it, and I thank you for having me on your show. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And by the way, you were ahead of your time on Rick Carlisle because it feels like over the last couple of years, now we're finally recognizing how great of a head coach he is. So this is another great reason to talk with you.
You know, Rick Carlisle, his first year in the league, he played with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were with the Celtics his first year, and that was one of my last years. So yeah, I do know these guys you're talking about.
Thanks so much for the time.
All right. Take it easy.